An ancient curse buried for decades returns and destroys everyone who finds it. The film begins in 1910 in the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt, right in the middle of a vast, barren desert where a man named Jafar is seen wandering in deep despair after experiencing a tragic fate that took the lives of his entire family. With the little strength he has left after traveling across the desert, Jafar finally decides to bury an ancient artifact in the form of a mystical chicken statue, which he believes to be the source of the disaster that caused his family's deaths. He once tried to destroy it, but every attempt failed, as if the object could not be destroyed. Because of that, the only thing he could do was bury it in the desert, far from anyone, hoping it would never be found again. Not long after burying the artifact, Jafar begins to feel its dark influence taking over his mind. Overwhelmed by fear and unable to escape it, he chooses to end his life by stabbing himself, dying alone in the desert after trying to keep the artifact hidden from the world. Time passes, and 93 years later, in 2003, the story shifts to Pasadena, a suburban area in California. Inside a rundown and poorly maintained house, a young boy named Mikey is seen trembling in fear while trying to call 911. With a shaky voice, he begs for help after becoming the victim of a kidnapping by a strange and terrifying woman. The situation grows more intense when Mikey begins to hear footsteps slowly approaching him, causing him to panic and hide as best as he can to avoid being found. In the middle of his overwhelming fear, Mikey tries to take the opportunity to escape by moving quietly and carefully, searching for a way out. But his effort fails when he finds no exit and ends up being caught again in a cornered state.
It was just a joke.
After being captured, Mikey is forced to sit with the woman while watching television. On the TV screen, he sees news coverage about his own kidnapping, which has lasted for more than 9 months, along with information that 4 similar cases involving young boys have occurred within the past year. It is also reported that Mikey's mother, Naomi, still hopes that her son will be found even after being missing for so long.
Mikey, Mommy loves you so much. Please bring my baby back.
Not long after that, a police officer named Sheriff Miller arrives at the house after receiving the emergency call. But what makes the situation even more tense is that he comes alone. Seeing the woman's suspicious behavior, he asks for permission to search the house, and the woman, realizing that the officer is alone, calmly allows him to enter. As he steps inside, Miller begins to feel an uneasy atmosphere and eventually decides to call for backup through his radio communication. Even so, his curiosity pushes him to continue checking the house despite the darkness and the unpleasant smell. The tension reaches its peak when Miller discovers a bathtub filled with a red liquid, prompting him to urgently call his colleagues to come as soon as possible. However, before help arrives, his attention is suddenly drawn to a sound coming from the basement. With caution, he checks the source of the noise and is shocked to find a horrifying sight of 3 lifeless bodies of kidnapping victims lying there. In his stunned state, the woman suddenly appears and attacks him from behind, killing him instantly on the spot.
Where's the fucking backup? I think I found potential victims here. Jesus Christ.
This incident raises a big question about who this mysterious woman really is. To understand everything, the story then moves back to 1 year before this incident, when an artifact that had once been buried in the past somehow resurfaced and eventually ended up in the hands of a man named John in the form of a mysterious package. Not long after that, John receives a phone call from his friend Steve, who admits that he is the one who sent the object. Steve asks John to keep the artifact for a while until its value increases so it can be sold on the black market, as if the object is extremely valuable. However, behind that, Steve also gives a serious warning for John not to carelessly open or tamper with the artifact, because according to the information he has, the object is believed to be the vessel of a dangerous, child-devouring demon named Volpazu. Even though it sounds unreasonable and more like a made-up story, John does not take the warning seriously and is instead more interested in the profit he could gain, even asking for 50% of the sale later on. However, after the call ends, something strange begins to happen, as John suddenly seems to be influenced by the artifact, as if an unseen force is slowly taking control of him. The situation becomes worse when he accidentally inhales a mysterious smoke coming out of the artifact, which causes his behavior to turn abnormal. Meanwhile, inside the same house, it is revealed that the terrifying woman who will later kidnap Mikey is actually Abigail, John's daughter. That night, while drunk, John tells his youngest child, Alice, to go to sleep. However, the atmosphere feels strange when Abigail suddenly becomes afraid as her father approaches her, as if she can sense that something is not right with him. As the night grows deeper, Abigail, who is still inside the house, begins to feel a strange energy coming from the cursed artifact. Not long after that, a figure resembling John but clearly possessed is seen following Abigail into her room. While Abigail is fast asleep, the entity inside John appears to be about to do something, until it is eventually revealed that the demon chooses to transfer itself and reside inside Abigail instead. From that moment on, Abigail's life changes drastically. Filled with fear and confusion about what is happening to her, she decides to run away from home early in the morning. As time passes, various strange events continue to haunt her, until she eventually isolates herself by living in her grandfather's abandoned house. However, Abigail's suffering does not end there. At one point, she is shocked to realize that she is suddenly pregnant without any logical explanation. She becomes convinced that the pregnancy is not something normal, but rather the result of the demon that now resides within her. Out of fear and desperation, Abigail tries to end the pregnancy on her own. A few days later, after being gone without any news for so long, she finally contacts her younger sister Alice to say goodbye. In that conversation, Abigail apologizes because she will never return, while also warning that there is something dangerous inside her that could put Alice in danger. Because of that, she asks Alice to forget about her for her own safety.
Please come back home.
I can't. I'm so sorry.
You wouldn't believe me. Something happened. I can't come home.
Are you okay?
Don't come look for me, okay?
However, the next day, Abigail is once again confronted by the demon, which still appears in the form of her father. With a tone full of anger, the demon expresses its frustration because Abigail has ruined its plan by ending the pregnancy. It then threatens her, saying that she must pay for her actions by sacrificing her own sister. Of course, Abigail firmly refuses and begs for another way. Hearing her refusal, the demon then gives another condition that is just as horrifying, forcing Abigail to kidnap several children to be offered as sacrifices until it finds one that is considered suitable. If not, then Alice will become the next target. In her desperate state, Abigail even tries to bargain by offering animals as a substitute, but the demon Volpazu refuses such offerings and continues to force her to fulfill its demand.
Please leave Alice alone.
He wants a little boy, Abigail.
The next day, the story shifts to a young boy named Bobby who is happily playing with bubbles in a park, unaware of the danger slowly approaching him. In the middle of his play, Bobby suddenly hears a strange whisper coming from a small cave in the park, as if something is calling out and drawing his attention. Without any suspicion, he slowly moves closer, following the voice, while his older sister is too busy on her phone and completely unaware that her little brother is in a dangerous situation. With no one there to stop him, Bobby eventually becomes the first victim in this series of horrifying events. After returning home, Abigail is shocked when she realizes that she has unknowingly kidnapped and killed an innocent child. Fear and guilt immediately begin to haunt her, but the situation does not stop there. The demon appears once again and makes it clear that one victim is not enough, forcing Abigail to continue abducting more children until it finds one that is considered suitable as an offering. This threat makes it clear that Abigail is completely trapped under the control of an evil force that leaves her with no choice, and without even realizing it, she has already taken 3 victims to fulfill the demon's demands. The story then returns to the present, where Mikey is completely shocked as he witnesses the police officer who came to save him instead die in a horrific condition. At the same time, Abigail, who briefly regains her awareness, realizes that she can no longer endure being controlled by the demon. In her desperation, she tells Mikey to run and save himself, while she chooses to end all the suffering she has been going through by taking her own life.
I'm sorry. I can't do it anymore. I wanted to protect you from all the awful things that I know he wants to do. I'm in hell forever.
Meanwhile, a tragic fate also befalls John, who is now living in regret and deep depression after losing his daughter. His condition worsens when he learns that a police officer was found dead at his parents' house, followed by the discovery of Abigail's body, who is strongly suspected to be involved in a series of kidnappings. The pressure from all these events causes John to lose all hope, leading him to make a fatal decision to end his own life.
This tragic incident has left the missing boys who had been found since
Time then jumps forward about 20 years later, when this case resurfaces through a talk show hosted by a presenter named Karen. In the show, Alice, now fully grown, is invited to discuss the horrifying case involving her sister in the past.
And she witnessed her sister. She grew up with absolute evil. Don't worry, you'll be okay. She decided to share her story with us. This is a conversation with Alice Reed.
On the other side, it turns out that Mikey is still alive and has grown into adulthood in an abnormal condition, living alone in an abandoned house with trauma that has never truly disappeared. On Halloween night, Alice, still driven by curiosity, tries to uncover the truth by watching old recordings of the investigation involving Mikey. From those recordings, it is revealed that Mikey suffers from severe mental trauma after spending months with Abigail. Even his mother, Naomi, notices a drastic change in her son, as Mikey is no longer the person she once knew. Until one day, Mikey disappears again after previously showing strange behavior by drawing disturbing figures. Through another recording belonging to Steve, it is revealed that all of this terror began when John unknowingly released the demon from the cursed artifact, which eventually led to Abigail being possessed. He also warns that the threat has not ended, as the demon is still roaming and continuing to search for new victims. Not long after that, Alice is startled by a mysterious phone call, but thinking it is just a Halloween prank, she chooses to ignore it and go to rest. However, in the middle of the night, she wakes up from a nightmare and her uneasiness grows stronger when she hears someone around her house. When she checks, Alice sees a figure covered in cloth, standing as if asking for candy. At first, it seems normal, until she realizes that there is something very wrong with the figure. The shocking truth is revealed when the figure turns out to be Mikey, who now claims that he has been chosen as the demon's servant to replace Abigail. Under immense pressure, Mikey forces Alice to take over his role so that he can be freed from the suffering he has endured all this time. Hearing this, Alice panics and tries to drive him away with threats, but the situation quickly becomes far more terrifying when the demon reveals its true form right in front of her.
You need to leave, or I'm calling the police.
Outside the house, Mikey recalls the moment he was chosen as the replacement. While at the same time, Alice's boyfriend, Alex, arrives to meet her. Without realizing the danger, Alex becomes the next victim when Mikey, now fully possessed, suddenly appears behind him and attacks him brutally. From that moment on, the demon possessing Mikey becomes increasingly uncontrollable, even targeting anyone connected to Alice. The story then shifts to Karen, who arrives at her workplace and senses that something is wrong when she finds the studio completely empty.
Guys, what's going on? Diana?
Her suspicion is confirmed when she discovers one of the employees, Diana, covered in blood, indicating that Mikey has attacked the place. In panic, Karen and Diana try to hide in separate places, but the situation becomes more critical as Mikey slowly approaches Karen's hiding spot. In order to save herself, Karen makes a desperate decision by diverting Mikey's attention toward Diana, which ultimately leads to Diana's tragic death. Karen then attempts to escape, but fails when the studio's rolling door is locked. When she is finally confronted by Mikey, Karen uses an electric shock device she carries to temporarily disable him. She uses that moment to call for help, but before she can finish the call, Mikey regains consciousness and nearly kills her. Fortunately, Alice arrives just in time and manages to stop him.
Stop! Now put the knife down. I'll take care of you. You don't have to be alone anymore.
In the middle of the chaos, Alice makes a major decision by agreeing to take Mikey's place as the demon's servant, hoping that everything will finally end. For a brief moment, this decision seems to calm Mikey, but it turns out that the demon still holds a grudge against Abigail's family and continues to target Alice. In that critical moment, Karen finally manages to stop Mikey and save Alice by ending his life. For a brief moment, everything feels like it is finally over, as the long chain of terror that has claimed many victims seems to have come to an end. However, when looking back at everything that has happened from the very beginning, one thing becomes clear. No one has ever truly been able to stop it. Jafar once tried to bury the artifact, Abigail tried to fight it, and even her death did not truly end the terror. The demon never disappears, it only waits, moves on, and searches for a new host to return. And now, without realizing it, when Alice agrees to replace Mikey, that decision has opened the door for the next wave of terror. A cycle that continues endlessly, as if it has no end, because in the end, this was never about how to stop it, but about who will become the next victim. And the story comes to an end.